This is New Yorkers for Justice. Truth does matter, as you will learn from today's roundtable discussion, which will include a question and answer session. And just a word about that. If you wish to speak, you're more than welcome. We ask that you keep your questions brief because we're going to try and regulate, if we can, the question and the answer to about 2 minutes apiece. Why? So we can get to as many of you as possible. We have a panel of speakers, and to get things underway and kick it off, I want to welcome to the podium right now the one and only Martha Flores Vasquez.
Martha. Welcome everybody to my district that I represent from my heart, and I'm so grateful. Today's a day of gratitude, not only for the governor, but for you who are in this room who support him. It is very important that he has support. And thank you. Welcome to my district. And you're going to get a whole education on this whole entire scenario. And welcome to the panelists. God bless you for all the strength and courage that you have. Because when something's controversial, right, we put ourselves on the line here. And we're willing to put ourselves on the line when the truth matters.
Yes,
So
we will.
This is a roundtable about the truth, and you will hear the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. And our first speaker from the panel today is, ladies and gentlemen, Connie Rogers.
Good morning. My name is Connie Rogers, and I am the chairman of New Yorkers for Justice. New Yorkers for Justice has been working super hard this year on 2 different initiatives. Our main goal has been to make other New Yorkers aware of what's happened with Governor Cuomo. Our organization has been working hard to inform all New Yorkers of the flawed, misleading Attorney General's report. Rallies, to multimedia initiatives, to direct mail pieces, our goal has been to inform New Yorkers and make them aware that in a premeditated manner, he was ambushed. So this morning, you will be hearing from our guest speakers regarding specific details outlining this political motivated hit job. Truth matters is the theme for today's roundtable. I want to open up today's roundtable with this topic: believe all women. We must never be taken in by this rhetoric. Hey, I'm a woman. But because I'm a woman does not mean that everything I speak is the truth. Or my gender does not speak truth. If I speak truth, then that's what's true. I want to bring your attention to media critic Eric Wemple. Eric Wemple writes from the Washington Post, one left unexpected tidbit was left unexplored. This is regarding Charlotte Bennett, whose accusations against the governor last February were followed by a succession of additional complaints. She herself being accused in a 2017 federal lawsuit of complaints that she herself had been accused of filing a false claim against a John Doe student at Hamilton College. The false claim states this was regarding non-consensual sexual contact. According to this complaint in John Doe versus Hamilton College, Sally Smith, who is known as Charlotte Bennett, filed this claim against the plaintiff knowing that this claim was false and knowing that the evidence presented was falsified. The suit also alleges that there was a recording in which Smith states that Doe did not sexually assault her. Carolyn Nash of The Spectator writes, in this lawsuit came in concert with another complaint lodged to secure disciplinary action against Doe, along with 4 other complaints. Suddenly, these complaints surfaced within 2 weeks of the alleged misconduct, and they went back 2 years. You see, Smith had been through this complaint process before. She understood that multiple reports against the same individual would likely result in that individual's removal from campus. And less than 2 weeks before graduation, Doe received word that he had been banned from the campus and declared ineligible for graduation. Smith withdrew her claim just days after Doe was barred from campus. Doe was suspended, and according to this complaint, he was not only banned from campus, but he was banned from senior week activities, along with not being able to walk with his class during commencement. Hamilton's review panel implemented the punishment of expulsion on September 12th, 2017. Doe claims that he was discriminated against based solely on his gender, and that Hamilton's current sexual misconduct policy does not give due process to male students. Doe also alleged that he experienced significant emotional damage as a result of this sanction and the decision to expel him. He states he is now limited in his ability to secure a degree, and his future unemployment prospects are bleak. The court now dismissed that lawsuit on September 21st, 2018. So I have a few questions. The first question is, if we knew, and it was known, that Charlotte Bennett had previously accused a young student, John Doe, of consensual sexual assault, and that this was done just a few years prior, and the case was dismissed. There was another case against her where there was factual evidence presented that she falsified and made false statements, and evidence was also falsified. And there was a tape stating that she was not sexually assaulted. So all of this leads me to ask, why was that not in the Attorney General's report? The evidence was there, the information has been there, but yet the Attorney General decided to not include that in her report. Why? Seems like if this happened before with this young lady, it should have been addressed, right? I mean, that's what my brain tells me it should have been looked into. Why? Why was it just tossed aside? That's interesting, isn't it? So what do we do with all of this? When I think about my son, he's 22 years old. He works super hard. He has a full-time job, and he's working to secure his master's degree. And he has every intention of going on to try to secure his doctorate. And I say this because we have a lot of young adults like John Doe in Hamilton College, my son here in Buffalo at the university, and all of our children, right? We all have or know of some young adult that's working really hard in school and just trying to secure his education and just do the best he can in life, right? So as a mom, I'm really terrified. What type of precedent are we setting here? What if somebody just one day says something false about my son? In a blink of an eye, is his life going to be ruined? If that's what we're doing, we need to really push back on that narrative, believe all women, because gender can never, nor should it ever, equal truth. Truth matters. Truth equals truth. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Paul, And I just want to take a moment to thank Paul for moderating the roundtable today. Thank you so much, Paul. I know it was on short notice, and I know you're going to do a spectacular job. Thank you, Paul. Take it away.
I would like to welcome to the podium at this time, Brenda Torres.
My name is Brenda Torres. I'm a native New Yorker, a supporter of Governor Andrew Cuomo, and one of the many disenfranchised voters. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for attending. I also want to thank my fellow speakers, as well as New Yorkers for Justice, for organizing this community roundtable. When I think back to the beginning of when these allegations came to light, it is the behavior of the assembly that is most baffling to me. How the assembly, with no evidence, no report in the initial months, immediately decided Governor Cuomo needed to resign. As a voter, I ask one simple question. How can you make such a decision without seeing evidence? The answer is quite simple. The majority had and still has a disdain for the governor and decided this was their opportunity to remove him from office. It didn't matter how it was done, just that it needed to get done. This was so evident when Politico posted on Twitter that a group of New York State lawmakers convened in a chat room called Clubhouse to plan the takedown of Governor Cuomo. This was something that was tweeted by Politico on March 14th of 2021. In this chat room was Alessandra Biaggi, Gustavo Rivera, Yu Ling Nu, and Julia Salazar, just to name a few. It is Alessandra Biaggi who is heard saying, "It will take a mother," and I will let everybody's imagination take over, to army to get him out. Is this the type of behavior we expect or want from our elected officials? No. The voters of New York demand and deserve better. The assembly shouldn't be surprised if many of the officials that are up for re-election may not win their seats. A few rogue lawmakers are to be expected, but when 110 out of 150 assembly members asked for Governor Cuomo to resign without 1 ounce of proof, I call that premature and politically motivated. These assembly members didn't consider the consequences of their actions or words. They did forget one important factor in their zeal to achieve their goal, the removal of Governor Cuomo. They forgot the voters, especially the 3.6 million voters who voted for Governor Cuomo and most likely would have voted for him again for a 4th term. The voters who have a say-so in all elections were not asked by any elected official, "What do you, the voters, want?" or "Voters, you decide." The decision was taken out of our hands by lawmakers who do not deserve to represent us, and all 110 should be held accountable for the damage they have caused New York and New Yorkers for the past 6 months. Thank you again for participating. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and opinions during this roundtable.
Thank you, Brenda. And our next speaker to the podium is Daisy Cooper here this afternoon? Or is Daisy Cooper,
She's in Hong Kong.
She's on this.
is she going to be speaking to us remotely from Hong Kong?
Yes.
Daisy, if you can hear me, you're on the air, as they say. Daisy Cooper, ladies and gentlemen.
Or America's governor, but his 111 daily COVID briefings educated, often entertained, despite the sometimes bad dad jokes, and were a source of comfort to people around the world at a time of uncertainty, fear, and panic. And when lockdowns kicked in, even isolation. America's governor, but his 100 advice from experts was often fluid and varied depending which country you were in or even which city you were in. His was the voice of reason, pleading compliance, because he truly loved New Yorkers. He inspired us with stories of success, failure, overcoming insurmountable obstacles, sharing anecdotes of his family and the boyfriend. And for that, he won the respect, admiration, and love of the global community. Not to mention a much deserved Emmy, which was then revoked without due process, without the completion of a fair investigation. New York Tough became a symbol around the world for a determination to fight back. Governor Cuomo was the calm in my storm, even though in Hong Kong we had already experienced the first SARS. We knew all about sanitizing and masks and everything, but this was a totally different beast. And because he brought me through it, I started looking further into who he was and what he had accomplished. Like all of you probably know him, but like the world was introduced to him through his briefings. So when I started looking into him, I realized who he was and what he had accomplished. Many of whom I spoke to remembered how dysfunctional the state was and how he changed it from marriage equality and a $15 minimum wage, gun safety, most recently, a whole reimagining of the infrastructure and other initiatives, which now you see others taking credit for. I've always loved America and Americans, but this is disturbing what has happened to the American body politic, American legal system, and media. What happened to due process or rule of law? What happened to facts mattering? The AG's report was rife with critical issues, from ethical and political conflict to actual prosecutorial misconduct. From the onset, James violated the referral order by personally interfering in the investigation and choosing two highly biased investigators whom then only had 23% of witnesses under oath. Information was omitted, ignored, buried in pages of irrelevant clutter. Witness statements were dismissed if they contradicted claims, and inconsistent or changing witness statements with no credible collaborating evidence was put in as concluded. The AG ignored clear evidence of blackmail, perjury, inconsistent testimony, witness tampering, then orchestrated trial by press conference, which, as Rudy Giuliani said, marked the end of due process and constitutional law as we know it in America. Alan Dershowitz told Newsmax the AG bigoted report was merely a political attack intended for impeachment, not criminal charges. James still has not provided Cuomo's lawyer with the so-called overwhelming evidence, nor is she willing to answer a single substantiated question on the report. Was she working with the Clubhouse Group and others? Her chief of staff did discuss Boylan's campaign, with Boylan's campaign manager an allegation-based strategy when she ran for Manhattan Borough President. We actually did a whole briefing on this, but I'll get to that later. Sheriff Apple, without sufficient evidence, without sufficient investigation, or the proper paperwork, or knowledge of the alleged victim and her lawyers, or the AD who was the prosecutor, which is unprecedented, filed a criminal complaint against Cuomo on the alleged victim's behalf. The only person who knew in advance was AG James. It was filed the morning after she announced she was officially running for Cuomo's job, when New Yorkers started questioning her motives. Bernadette Hogan from the New York Post was leaked and used grand jury information for 2 articles she wrote. She emailed Cuomo's lawyer that Sheriff told her that the subpoenas have been issued, and it's a felony to disclose grand jury proceedings, which are required by law to be kept secret. New Yorkers for Justice commissioned a truly independent, crowd-funded, legally sound report led by the Hispanic community that refuted AG's conclusions and shed light on her shadiness. Please email us for a copy and of the video of the presser, as the truth matters. Thank you.
All the way from Tokyo. Not bad.
Hong Kong, not Japan.
Was it Hong Kong? Not bad from Hong Kong either, actually. Hey, here's somebody I know is with us presently, in person, from right there. Michelle Lander to the podium, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. On behalf of New Yorkers for Justice, I'd like to thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to attend this. On December 13th, 2020, Lindsey Boylan made public in a series of tweets the first allegations against Governor Andrew Cuomo, and the media wasted no time in publicly convicting him without one shred of credible evidence. After every press conference or public address, no matter how important the information was, the press showed blatant disrespect for the governor. Bernadette Hogan and Zach Fink were two of the most offensive, always asking the same questions over and over again about sexual allegations. Conquering COVID was no longer their agenda. They became heat-seeking missiles aimed at destroying his reputation. The New York Times and the New York Post were publishing articles daily, never asking the governor to present his own side. Jake Tapper, Anderson Cooper, and the most sickening one of all was Don Lemon of CNN, supposedly Chris Cuomo's best friend. They always accused and pointed a finger ever since the first allegation began, ever since, not even asking for the governor to come on their show and present his side of the story. Within days, late-night talk hosts and TV shows embraced the farce and made Governor Cuomo the target of cruel jokes. And The View had their day as well, all before the investigation had a chance to become unpacked. Their cruelty took on a life of its own. Andrew Cuomo bent himself in half, opening up vaccination sites, giving incentives, bringing help to those who would otherwise be hard-pressed to be in a position to receive the necessary vaccines. Governor Cuomo even took a televised vaccine himself once he became eligible. He did not do it before he was eligible. And he demonstrated to the public that the vaccine was safe, showing his love and devotion for the people of New York, and especially demonstrating to the Black community that the vaccine was safe. At the very next briefing, the obnoxious questions came up again, but not one single member of the press had the common courtesy to ask him how he was feeling. They were more concerned with their agenda of never seeking the truth and only geared to embarrass the governor. They never asked for his side of the allegations to be heard. They never asked why the AG withheld transcripts. But we, the voters, knew why. She did it so the governor's counsel would not be able to prepare a proper defense, never giving Rita Glavin a chance to divulge the testimony of Governor Cuomo. The media never questioned this. Who is the disgrace now? 5 DAs refused to charge him with any crime, saying there wasn't enough evidence for a conviction. But let me be clear, he wasn't charged because there was nothing to charge him with. Yet the media continues to take jabs at him and his family at every turn. Who is the disgrace now?
Yes.
Recently, Errol Lewis of New York One invited Ms. Glavin as a guest in order to interview her. But during the interview, he was rude and downright obnoxious, sneering at her and interrupting her, showing a lack of professionalism. Who is the disgrace now? Yellow journalism took over fairness. Journalists had the obligation to report true facts and not report sensationalism to drawing readers. This was clearly a trial by media. Except for Dan Abrams and Michael Tracy, two upstanding men in their field who were fair and did not rush to judgment. Two men who did not feed on the blood of a man who politicians delighted in wounding. Alan Chardoff, a radio host, had Governor Cuomo on his radio talk show frequently during the height of the pandemic, praising him for his leadership and fawning over every word he said. Once the first allegations came out, he raked Governor Cuomo over the coals. But 2 weeks prior to Ms. Glavin's last press conference, he invited her to be a guest on his show. And now that the tides were turning to the governor's favor, he was dripping with honey during the interview. He fooled no one. He never once admitted that he, like everyone else, rushed to judgment. Trevor Noah did the same thing, invited the governor on his show when he was useful to his ratings, and quickly turned the tables and began making jokes about him. He never bothered to invite Ms. Glavin as a guest speaker. So who is the disgrace now? How disgusting was the childish act of taking the governor's Emmy away? Was it because he said the doctor made the outfit look good? Did it ever occur to anyone that probably the governor was just a bit nervous and fearful that if he tested positive, he would have to quarantine for 14 days, and he was worried that would hold him back from doing the things he needed to do and the places he needed to be? The doctor was insulted? How petty. She's the one who's disgraced. The recalled Emmy Award doesn't take away one bit from all the wonderful briefings Governor Cuomo did. It only shows how petty the Emmys were. Who is the disgrace now? Recently, Ms. Glavin spoke at a press conference 2 weeks ago, publicly stating that there was evidence of witness tampering, perjury, and prosecutorial misconduct. And still, the media reported in their usual and tainted way. They reported to the public that although 5 DAs refused to prosecute, they found the women credible. They never reported why they were credible, nor did they ever publish what the standards of sexual harassment for New York State are. They are right there. Please take the time to read them. They left that for the readers to find for themselves. John Katsimatidis of 77 WABC invited Ms. Glavin as a guest speaker after it was disclosed that the governor would be filing ethics charges of perjury, witness tampering, and prosecutorial misconduct against the AG, Yoon Kim, and Ann Clark. And he was appalled at the way the media was conducting themselves throughout the entire upsettedness. He said, whenever there was news that was damning against Governor Cuomo, it was front page news, and it dominated all of the news stations. But yet, when there was vindication, he said it was on page 37. He put to rest the question as to why, if he was not guilty, why did he resign? He resigned because the deck was stacked against him. He treated Ms. Glavin fairly. He dealt with the nonsensical allegations of a kiss on the cheek at a wedding and the comment to the doctor and the ridiculous allegations of Virginia Liminitatis. He was gracious to Ms. Glavin and invited her back anytime she wanted the public to know the truth. That's because the truth matters. Time and time again, the media used words like victims, disgraced, and most recently, perpetrator. Let me be perfectly clear. There are only victims when a crime is committed. There was no crime. Governor Cuomo is not disgraced because he has not been convicted of any of these allegations. Let's always remember, it went from 11 to 0. And he is most certainly not a perpetrator. dare anybody in the media call him that? And finally, the name calling by the incompetent in the Attorney General's office that branded him a serial sexual harasser. Miss James, you are a serial liar. Has the media printed that? Who is the disgrace now? There's been much speculation as to whether the governor should run for office in 2022. I ask you this, why shouldn't he? He has not been convicted of any crime. His voters and supporters are standing behind him and with him. We have been ever since this began. We never asked for his resignation. We were disenfranchised. We voted this governor into office 3 times, and God willing, if he runs again, we'll vote him in for a 4th. He has loved and done more for New York than any governor in my lifetime.
Absolutely.
If one takes the time to learn all of the wonderful things he has done and read about them in his 40 plus years of service, it would read like a war and peace novel. This governor has always put the people and their needs far above the agendas of the politicians on the left and the right and anywhere in between. He led the world during the worst pandemic of our times, and he brought New York up from their knees without help from the occupant in the Oval Office. He is a governor who has always known how to govern in his state. He is tough, smart, disciplined, loving, and he taught us to be united. He is a born leader, and New York needs him to lead again. In this country, we're innocent until proven guilty. That did not happen. And just as the Attorney General and her minions had their sights set on proving guilt, so did the media, set on running away with anything that would cause sensationalism. They never once admitted they were wrong in their cruel and inhuman reporting. They never approached Governor Cuomo for an honest interview, but continued to stand by the flawed reporting. They continued to use his name like a battering ram, proving not only to me, but to the voters what I've always thought, garbage in and garbage out. Who is the disgrace now? Why should Governor Cuomo run again? Because Governor Cuomo is the most dynamic and capable leader this country has had in a long time. And it's about time the media started reporting the truth. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michelle. I'd like to welcome back to the podium the person who kicked this all off a short while ago. Once again, Martha Flores Vasquez.
During the pandemic, when Governor Cuomo was my friend, this is what I had to wear. My father died from COVID, okay? And my brother and I, we took care of my dad from home until we couldn't anymore. We transported him to the hospital, and this is what we had to wear, okay? And even this was hard to get. And when I purchased it, it was $175, right? And then this I got from Peter Koo, my councilman, his pharmacy. So how were the people affected that went through this? How were the people affected, okay? So I'm going to talk about those impressions that the public has, that the voters have. And my family, what we went through, what you went through, what we're still going through, right? And this is why we need Cuomo. This is why we need him back. This is why we need to deploy him and bring him back, okay? So this is a demonstration. This is a demonstration of what it was like and what it still is like, because we don't know what the expected is. There's so much uncertainty, right? But one thing for sure that was certain and that will always be certain is that we had the strongest leader that was looked upon nationwide, that we were the model for the world, and that he needs to come back and continue his work. Not only as governor, I wish he was the president of the United States of America. So I'm going to take off my gear now that we saw what life was like and what life could be like if we're not careful and if we don't bring him back. Because it's not about politics. Okay? It's about safety. It's about stability. It's about consistency. It's about the man that will show up and turn up for you, Governor Cuomo.
Sure.
Okay, so now I went ahead and I spoke to professionals. I went ahead and I spoke to young women and I asked them, I said, can you send me your impressions? So I'm going to read off those impressions. And I'm going to start by reading the impression of a young woman who's also a member of the New Yorkers for Justice. Her name is Lauren Lacono. And this is what she has to say. Governor Cuomo helped me get through a really dark time in my life. Not only was it the beginning of the pandemic, which none of us had ever lived through before, but my dad was diagnosed with cancer. It was a terrifying time in my life in so many ways. I felt like I was living in a nightmare that I couldn't escape. Governor Cuomo got on TV every day to talk to New Yorkers and people from around the world that tuned in and guide us through the unknown, to give us facts, to let us know that we weren't alone, even though many of us felt that way, and that we were in this together. Lauren Lacono. I have another one. I'm going to read three from, and I'm going to save the forensic one for last. Done. From DJ Sultana. And, you know, it's not just New Yorkers, but people around the world. So she says, Martha, my answer to a question as to why I support Governor Andrew Cuomo. I am a Canadian citizen residing in Vancouver, British Columbia. I have relatives in New York State. I was worried about them when the virus hit New York first in March 2020. No one knew what to do. The only person who was reassuring on the news channel was Governor Andrew Cuomo. People from all over the world were turning in to listen to him. That's the first time I came to know who Governor Andrew Cuomo was. And I started watching his briefings every day. At that time, I also accidentally came across Chris Cuomo primetime show. I noticed a resemblance in their looks and saw how passionate he was about news broadcasting. Hold on. Lost my spot here. I also accidentally came across Chris Cuomo primetime show. I noticed a resemblance in their looks and saw how passionate he was about news broadcasting. This made me read up on the Cuomo family, and I realized how great that family was. Thereafter, I saw a few posts on Facebook, and this made me join some groups so that I could get to know a bit more about the Governor Cuomo and his family. One administrator of the governor's support group was looking for a member to take over her task because she was ill. I volunteered and I became one administrator of governor's support group was looking for a member to take over her task because she was ill. I volunteered and I became the sole administrator. I started with 200 members and now have 900 members. After I saw what happens to men with this political hit on the governor with the Me Too movement, I decided to start the Me Too movement for men. I now have 58 members in this group. Thanks for support of Martha Flores Vasquez, who inspired me to start this group for men who are often accused because they believe all women. My sister in India is a member of the Congress Party, and I saw that was done to her, what was done to her family and her mango and cashew farm A farm with animals in it was torched by radicals. So I know what political hits can do. This awareness has steered me towards helping Governor Cuomo. I'm not going to go further because now I'm going to read to you a very important forensic one. Someone who I highly, highly respect. So I asked a clinical psychologist, I'm in the field of psychology. And right from the beginning, I said, something's wrong here. And when you look at the interviews of these women, you definitely know that something's wrong. Okay. So, and not to put women down and not to put them down because they need help and they should get the help, but they should not get help by bringing this kind of attention to bringing people down to get help. Okay. So here we go. This is the forensic psychologist. My impression of the entire debacle is that a dangerous cadre of power-hungry, misandristic females manipulated the Me Too movement for their own self-aggrandizement, seeking to control the political spectrum in the state of New York. Their goal was to control every major political office in the state by electing social democratic women to them by dismantling the current political schema and knocking out the power grid that controlled it for the past 11 years. Their goal was to destroy the most powerful politician in the country by using the same kinds of allegations that have brought powerful kingpins to their knees, annihilating their reputations and dismantling their careers. These women were purposeful in their plan to use the media against themselves as well as elected officials by shaming them into aligning with them in this plot to destroy the former governor who had widespread support and appeared unbeatable at the voting machines. Their arrogance was boosted by the fact that these women have never been caught. Marilyn Curtis Nolan, PhD. So what does this thank you. What does this tell you is that the public has many, many impressions, right? Some of the impressions are, the governor must be a bully, like the attorney general, who I've supported in the past, but can't do that any longer.
Nope.
He's a bully, right? But bullies are people that disrespect that this case has gone from 11 to 0. 11 to 0. They are no longer accusing Governor Cuomo of criminal misconduct because there was none. You also need to know that there are socialist Democrats in New York City. It's a new group. It's a new generation. It's a younger generation. And they're very ambitious. And sometimes when people are ambitious, what do? They serve their own need. I say that with this gown and that, and you here, and some of those who suffered through COVID and lost loved ones, that we cannot be about ambition or political aspirations, like replacing the governor or controlling the Democratic Party. I say that we have to be for the people, by the people. And that's why you're here today, because you, just like me, just like our honorable panelists, and thank you so much for taking the time to come here and explain. And if you have questions, you're going to ask them because they have all the answers. They're on it. They're dedicated. And they're not tolerating this. And I have zero tolerance, and so should you. So thank you. Thank you for being here. I'll keep it short and simple because we need to meet life in life's terms. So now we step up to the podium, we step up to the mic, and we say, Adelante with Cuomo. Stop the political sabotage. Stop it and stop it now. Digo que nosotros tenemos que dedicarnos a la verdad siempre. Y estamos aquí para hablar la verdad, porque la verdad es que habían políticos que querían el puesto del gobierno. Y esos políticos todavía están batallando y todavía están atacándolo. Pero nosotros no podemos permitir esto. No podemos tolerar eso, porque no es una cosa buena para la comunidad, especialmente en tiempos de una pandemia. Todavía no sabemos lo que va a pasar. Todavía estamos viviendo una vida muy insegura y la persona que nos apoyó y que nos puede continuar a apoyarnos profesionalmente y ayudarnos es el Governor Cuomo. Queremos que el Governor Cuomo regrese a su puesto o que corra para presidente de Nueva York, de la nación, porque él es el hombre presente. We're gonna take questions after. We're gonna take questions after one more speaker. I know you're excited, but we all have the answers for you. So the next speaker will be introduced. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me babysit with that equipment. Yes, and believe it or not, Martha will return shortly. But right now, our final speaker before we get to the roundtable discussion and the question and answer session. Yes, indeed. I was wondering what the megaphone was for, Martha, and now we know. One more reminder, again, when we do begin the question and answer session, those who wish to speak, raise their hand. You'll be called upon. Step up to that microphone in the center of the floor. You ask your question. One of our panel members will provide the answer, and we will try our best to regulate both question and answer, each to around 2 minutes, if you'll help us in that regard. In the meantime, I would like to welcome to the podium Carol Bixby.
Hello. My name is Carol Bixby. I want to thank you for coming. I'm going to talk about the 11 to 0. Let me just put on my glasses here. Okay, I'm a member of New Yorkers for Justice. I'm here today because I feel strongly that Andrew Cuomo was forced to resign from office by a group of politicians, and I'm sorry to keep my mask on, who wanted him out of Albany and out of power. The allegations of sexual harassment that sprung up suddenly and furiously between December 2020 and March 2021 were used and amplified by many in the state legislature to assure his removal from office. The investigation by Letitia James examined evidence and interviewed 179 witnesses, but only a small part of the story was presented to the public, the part that supported the narrative they wanted you to hear. Interviews and other exhibits that supported Governor Cuomo and supported his innocence were held back. His side of the story was never presented to the public until it was too late. There was no justice here. There was no due process. And for the most part, the media only reported what the investigative committee wanted the public to believe. Governor Cuomo had sexually harassed 11 women. This is a lie, and that's what I'm here to show. I have never been one, just by way of introduction, I have 2 daughters. One is a medical resident and the other is about to graduate with a degree in engineering. I've also been a Girl Scout leader for 15 years, and I love meeting with the girls, and our whole point is to inspire them to, do whatever they can do in life. I have never been of the opinion that boys will be boys. So my point to telling you about this is, if I believe that Andrew Cuomo had sexually harassed even one of these women, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. I encourage all of you to read the testimony and watch the actual investigations. You can get it probably on YouTube. You can get it from our website, which we'll be happy to give you, NewYorkersForJustice.com. When you watch these investigations, when you listen to what the people have to say, that the accusers have to say, I'm sure you'll form your own opinions that the types of things they were talking about, well, you'll form your own opinions. I'll just leave it at that. Governor Cuomo was interviewed himself for 8 hours. It was fabulous.
Right.
And everybody should hear what he has to say. It's there for us to know, which we should. We shouldn't just take it from what the media tells us happened. We should get our own information. It's very important. So, so I'm going to start with the 11 accusers to just go through them, and I'm going to go in the opposite order of, we're going 11 to 0 is the theme, from where we usually start. I'm going to start with the last one and put her first. Number 11, Virginia Lemonitis.
Please.
Virginia Lemonitis was, first of all, she did not work with Governor Cuomo. They met once. This is the only time they met. She is an energy worker in Oswego County. He was there for an event opening up the Salmon River land grant, like 3,000 acres that was going to the state preserve. And she met him in a reception line after the event. A reception line formed. She was in the middle, and Governor Cuomo went through shaking hands with all of the people. And she accused him of reading the letters on her shirt and touching the letters on her shirt as he went by. Little did she know that this was highly photographed. This whole event was, there were people in front of her, people on the side of her. Nobody else saw this happen. And when the pictures were shown, this is one of the pictures, and as you can see, her hand is squarely on his shoulder and arm. He is not touching her, but she is touching him. Was that sexual harassment? Of course not, because touching somebody's arm is not sexual harassment. This case actually did go to court in Oswego County, and it didn't go to court because the DA refused to prosecute. The DA said that there wasn't sufficient evidence to prosecute this, so this is down. So now we're at 10. Anna Rook, number 10. I don't have a picture of Anna Rook. We don't need a picture of Anna Rook because you've all seen the pictures. They were all over social media. There was the picture of a woman who was getting a kiss from Governor Cuomo, one of the first. She was a third accuser. The kiss was at a wedding. Anna Rook did not work with Governor Cuomo. There was the first and only time she met him. They went to a wedding that I believe Governor Cuomo officiated with, and she came up to thank him for his toast. She thought he gave a wonderful toast. And Governor Cuomo said, can I give you a kiss? And he bent down and kissed her on her left cheek, and one of her friends took that picture. She didn't like that. She didn't want to be kissed. This is something, a change of, social norms that like Martha was alluding to, generational differences. I got married in the 90s. Most of my friends got married in the 80s or 90s. And it was very common. You went to a wedding, you're going to get hugged and kissed. When I was in a reception line after I got married, lots of people went through and kissed me and never asked me. And I never in a million years considered that I was being sexually harassed. But, the times have changed, and we've all learned that people now consider that, some people consider that to be offensive. But it is not in any way sexual harassment. If that becomes sexual harassment, we better all go home, look at our old pictures, and start shredding and deleting, because you might be accused of sexual harassment. This woman never did bring charges, so that's gone. So that was number 10. Number 9, the doctor. Most of you probably saw this on national television. I watched it as it happened live. And so when this was one of the ones that Letitia James presented, I was like, what? The doctor was giving him a COVID test. And she was wearing PPE, and he made the comment, the offhand comment, you make that PPE look good. That's considered an offhand comment. And if you read the law on sexual harassment, offhand comments are not considered sexual harassment. Now, why did he make the comment? I mean, one theory that I have that he was making conversation because it was a tense situation. It was new. These COVID tests were new. The PCR test, if you've ever had it, can be painful. It can hurt. It can make you sneeze, it can make your nose bleed, that doesn't usually happen, or it can make you tear up. And he had to do this on national television.
Right.
The message he wanted to get across is to encourage people to get tested. He probably was a little nervous, don't you think?
Yes.
And so he made a light comment about it. And to me, as a doctor, my daughter's a doctor. I'm a pharmacist. I work with doctors. He was her patient at that point. She should have understood and not considered that to be sexual harassment. Now, apparently, he also made a joke before they went on stage that she said had sexual innuendo. It could have been interpreted different ways, and it really wasn't anything that was a big deal. It didn't have any bad language in it or anything of that nature. So this woman, no charges were ever filed with this, and she didn't work with him, like I said. The language that this woman used, I mean, the language in the joke, there was no bad language in the joke, was nothing compared to the language that our next person uses on a regular basis. We have number 8, the author, Karen Hinton. Karen Hinton had known Governor Cuomo, has known him for over 20 years. She worked with him as his press secretary when he was working for HUD a long time ago. And they kept up a friendship over the past over 20 years. She's actually married now to a man named Howard Glazer, who used to work for the State Department, work with Governor Cuomo. There are emails that have, not emails, but things on Facebook, letters that she has sent to him over the past couple of years, as recently as 2018 and during the pandemic, praising him for his work, even commenting that working for Governor Cuomo and for Bill de Blasio, it was a pleasure to work for them. They were not the type of men that, I forget the wording, but basically saying that they were pleasant and they were gentlemen. That was the point, they were gentlemen. Why did her message change suddenly and she reported as sexual harassment that 20 years ago he gave her a hug in a hotel room? They were traveling together with their group. 20 years ago, he gave her a hug in a hotel room. And she reported this. Well, why did she report this? She was writing a book. She was about to have a book published. And I won't even tell you what the title of the book was, because I wouldn't use that language, one of the words, in front of a group like this, okay? Anyway, we'll put her down. But she still has a lot of comments to make on Facebook. Number 7, we have Anna Liss. Interesting that Anna Liss actually works now for Howard Glazer, who is Karen Hinton's husband. So obviously these two talked. Anna Liss is a young woman who was a fellow, I guess, and came to work as the executive chamber with Governor Cuomo. And she came forward with her story, which basically amounted to a job mismatch. She wasn't really happy with her job. She felt that she was hired for her looks. Some of these people you find have a very good opinion of themselves. She felt she was hired for her looks. She initially wasn't working directly with Governor Cuomo, and somebody else left, and then she was just in an office. Her only complaint of him even touching her was that one time he bent down and kissed her hand, like you see in the old medieval days, a man kisses a woman's hand. He never asked her out. He never had really any physical contact with her at all. No hugs, no kisses, nothing. He kissed her hand once, and she felt that she was hired for her looks and that she wasn't doing significant work in her job. It isn't uncommon for people out of college to take a job that they think is going to be really fulfilling and find out that that's not the work for them, that it's not working out, and they move on and get another job. But it had nothing to do with sexual harassment. And I think she even says in her deposition, when you listen to it, that she didn't really feel she was sexually harassed. She just felt uncomfortable. Somebody in the office also made a comment to her, an older woman who worked there, that Governor Cuomo liked it when you wore heels. And she thought that made her feel like she was in a scene from Mad Men. But Governor Cuomo never told her to wear high heels. So we're going to put her down here. So now we come to number 6, a woman named Caitlin, who likes a little bit of anonymity, if that's the word. And she also worked for the state. We just know her as Caitlin. And Governor Cuomo met her at an event. It was a fundraising event, I believe. And she had helped organize the event. And he was really impressed with her work, with what she did. And he knew she'd been with the state before, and he came up to her and he said, I'd like you to come back to the state again, come back to the state. He basically was offering her a job, and he posed in this dance pose, which, do you see anything that looks sexually harassing about being in that pose?
Yeah, happy.
He posed for a picture. The governor takes, as a governor, you take thousands of pictures of. And then when she got there, again, there was nothing sexual that happened between the governor and Caitlin. It was more comments. He would comment on her clothing. For instance, she came to work one day in New York City with a buffalo plaid shirt, and he told her that she looked like a lumberjack. That's just a comment about a dress code. Working in a New York City office, if I went to work in a buffalo plaid shirt in a hospital where I work, I would be asked to leave. It was just the way that you dress. Another day she came to work early and he made a comment that, she didn't have her makeup on, or you didn't get ready or something like that. And she took that as being offensive. It sounded like this was a woman who changed into a job when she liked the job she had. And when she got to the job, she didn't feel as comfortable at it. And he was trying to bring her, up to a different level, expect more of her, and she was upset. But she was in no way sexually harassed. And I think she basically said she didn't feel sexually harassed. It just didn't like the atmosphere where she was working. Letitia James should never have included Anna Liss or Caitlin in a report about sexual harassment, because there was absolutely nothing that they did that could be considered sexual harassment. Commenting on people's clothing, unless it's done to an obsessive degree, or commenting on people's hair, which other people did, is not sexual harassment as defined by the law. So then when we get into the next one, we start to get to people, we start to see evidence of actively seeking witnesses. And I got some of these things from Facebook and things that were published. But here's a quote from Lindsay Boylan. According to her own testimony, Boylan communicated with other accusers. Specifically named are Bennett, Liss, Anna Liss, and Caitlin. None of the communications between them is included as evidence. Caitlin, who I know you talked to because I've spoken with her before all this escalated, not about anything she talked about with you, but I just know that she's probably on your list. They had a list of people to contact. We overlapped and I actually reached out to her. There was a need to see if I could kind of help to build a bigger story. Two of the first people I reached out to were Anna Liss and Caitlin. You mentioned talking to Charlotte. Did you keep in touch with her after December? Yeah, I text her all the time. So there is absolute concrete evidence of looking for more witnesses to build a bigger story. Anna Liss never would have come forward. I mean, there was nothing to come forward about. Caitlin would not have come forward. They were on to other jobs, living their own life. They were actively sought out by people like Lindsay Boylan, primarily by Lindsay Boylan. But why would some of the best lawyers in New York, the Attorney General of your state, and two of her investigative lawyers put this in to the report and report to the people that 11 women had sexually harassed Governor Cuomo? And you've seen what some of their stories actually were. I encourage everybody in New York to actually read this testimony, because as I keep emphasizing, when you read it, you'll see what a scam this was. They wanted a certain narrative, and building the numbers, then people can say, well, the preponderance of the evidence. Okay. Then we come to what I'm going to call the big five, the people that we have all heard of, the people whose stories were all over the newspaper. We don't always need pictures because we recognize them. One thing that's very interesting about big five is when you get to these five people, you start seeing evidence of unethical behavior, even criminal behavior among some of them. This I also picked up off of one of our Facebook accounts. Specifically, clear instances of witness intimidation, witness tampering, and outright blackmail by one of the accusers went unchecked and unchallenged. Testimony and facts that were counter to Tish James' findings were disregarded and never explored by the independent investigators. shifting accounts about times, dates, and important details of some of the most serious accusations, which have since been thrown out of court, were papered over and never explored. You can read it for yourselves. So we have all seen this picture. Alyssa McGrath and Brittany Camiso. Alyssa McGrath these two were friends since about the 7th grade, apparently. I listened to Alyssa McGrath's testimony, and generally speaking, she seemed like she's somebody who really liked her job. She still is working for the state. She's apparently very good at her job. She talked about a lot of things that go on in any office, about, getting the coffee and how much time it takes to get the coffee and who pays for the coffee and who's doing what. But the only thing that she said in regard to sexual harassment is that she felt that in one instance, the governor was looking at a horn necklace with an Italian horn that was hanging around her neck, and she thought maybe he was checking out her chest. The governor says that he was sitting across from her, and that would have been impossible from where he was, that he was trying to make conversation about the commonality that they had. They're both Italian. But other than that, it doesn't seem like there were any, it seemed like she actually had really liked him. And that was backed up by her ex-husband, Matthew McGrath's testimony. If you go all the way to the end, her ex-husband actually called the investigative committee to say that he had something that he wanted to say. And what he testified to was that Alyssa almost idolized the governor. And she had pictures of him and pictures like this picture all over her social media. That she had a picture of him in her bedroom. And she had, little mementos of things that they did at work, and that she really always, through the COVID and everything, she was working, really liked the governor. And I don't think that that's unusual for a young woman to, he's a powerful man. She appreciated the fact she was working with him and liked him. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
There is some of these are other quotes that I find that will show you the trace of people collaborating to get more people to say that they were sexually harassed to build a bigger story, and other evidence that pertains to the character of the women. But at the end, there's a note that Alyssa sent to her husband. I think it was a text that they did retrieve. And she told him, there's a story coming out about Governor Cuomo, because she had come forward at that point. She said, please back me up. I had to do it to keep my job. And that should disturb everybody. Most of us don't see it. It's buried in a footnote. They figure we're not going to look at this testimony. It's buried. No one's going to see it. We've moved on. That's one of her common things to say, move on. But it's right there. This woman said to her ex-husband, please back me up, because I may lose my job if I don't testify. And now to present Brittany Camiso, we have Michelle.
Okay. Brittany Camiso changed the story 4 times. First time, Governor Cuomo supposedly touched her was November 16th, with 10 other workers around and with people in the mansion working around. She claimed that he grabbed her, he touched her, got under her blouse, and touched her breast. And then it was discovered that that was not possible. She gave another date in November. That particular date couldn't have happened. Governor Cuomo was in Rochester giving 2 briefings. And then Rita Glavin said there was no other date in November. She tried for a 3rd date. Finally, it was discovered that she came December 7th to the mansion. I'm going to give you the timeline. She walked in at 3:51, swiped the card, went upstairs to the executive offices. She was wearing a coat, zipped, belted. She told this to the investigators. She worked on his phone. He wanted a hard copy of something. She worked on his phone. handed it. He said to her, "Why don't you take off your coat?" She said, "I have to go back to the office." Worked on his phone, gave it back to him. He said to her, how are things going at the office? She said, "Well, you know how the office is." Claimed that he touched her. He touched her under her blouse up to her bra. Now, I explain, ladies and gentlemen, it's zippered. It's belted. I can't get my hand up there. Are we talking Governor or Edward Scissorhands? How could he possibly have gotten under there? She swiped out at 4:07. That's 16 minutes. You're going to tell me that she was able to walk up to the second floor with the coat on, do what she had to do, have a brief conversation, never take off her coat, swipe out at 4:07, looking exactly like this, and go through that trauma? I ask you, does this sound feasible? Thank you.
Okay, so now we are down to number 3. The New York State Trooper. New York State Trooper worked in the Protective Service Unit with Governor Cuomo and claimed that he had made some offensive comments of a sexual nature to her and claimed that he had touched her stomach as she was holding a door open for her at the Belmont racetrack. He attended this event at the Belmont racetrack along with one of his daughters, lots of photographers, and but he, as he walked in, his hand, and he didn't deny that, went across her stomach. This action, but it wasn't of a, as Governor Cuomo said. Well, Governor Cuomo testifies that he did not do it for a sexual reason, which seems obvious to me. However, this went to court, and the prosecutor refused to take it. He said there wasn't enough evidence, there was no criminality that he could prove, it wasn't something that he could bring to court. And then we have the two that we've all heard of probably the most, Charlotte Bennett and Lindsey Boylan. And I'm not going to talk too long about that because we all know about them. The only couple things I want to mention about Lindsey Boylan, she was the first one, of course, to come out. And I do believe in reading what women say. I obviously, as much as I thought of the governor, it's only fair to, what does this woman have to say? I read what she said. And I'm reading through it, and I'm thinking, this looks like the type of thing that a middle school principal would deal with. There were quotes in there like, this person told me that the governor has a crush on me. Somebody said that you look like the governor's old girlfriend. There was a lot of stuff like that, but I was not seeing anything that looked to me like sexual harassment. And some things really stood out to me as sounding strange. One was that he asked her to meet him in his office in the mansion, and he took her on a tour. One thing that's very important for people to understand when they hear things about his office in the mansion, the governor's mansion is a museum. It's not like our house. It's not like your house or my house. When you go upstairs, you have a couple of bedrooms and a bathroom, a couple of bathrooms. There's an office, there's all kinds of rooms. It's a historical landmark in New York that his mother, the First Lady of New York, totally redid when she was married to, when she was with Mario Cuomo, when he was governor, I meant to say. And Governor Cuomo, loves history. He loves to show off some of the items that are up there. Franklin Roosevelt lived there, Teddy Roosevelt lived there, Nelson Rockefeller. And when he has new employees, he loves to show them share some of these things with him. When he was showing Lindsey Boylan around, she claims that he showed her a box of cigars that were some of the last cigars out of Cuba before there was an embargo. President Clinton had given this box of cigars to Andrew Cuomo when he worked for him at HUD. And as Lindsey Boylan said, he showed me the cigars and you know where that was going. And I'm like, I would never go there. I mean, I know where you want me to go with this, but this isn't where the average person would go with that. It seems that everything came down to a sexual connotation with her. And that's when I started thinking that her testimony seemed just a little bit off to me. And again, her comments about the mansion, you have to always keep in mind that that's not just like a regular house. It has bedrooms and bathrooms upstairs. The other thing was the talk about him asking her to play strip poker on the plane. And I had read the governor's book, Leadership in Crisis, or about the COVID crisis. I might have had the title wrong, excuse me. And I read about the plane that he flies around in, which is teeny tiny, much smaller than this room. It's a very small propeller plane. And she was on that flight with Governor Cuomo and about 6 other people. And so they were cramped. And she said the governor sat beside her and asked her to play strip poker. Well, anybody who thought that he really meant that, number one, has to be somebody who reads nothing but the National Enquirer and watches soap operas all day. I mean, that's an absurd idea that if she thinks people are going to think they're going to be playing strip poker on a plane with 6 people. Was it a joke? Maybe, I thought. But the thing is, nobody else heard it. You're in a small space with 6 people. Nobody else heard him say that. However, one man, I believe his name was Zemsky, took back that testimony after Lindsey Boylan sent him a very threatening email or text telling him basically that she would destroy his life if he didn't back her up. And that's one of the quotes that I have up here. And that's public knowledge. So that's called witness tampering, and that's against the law. And the investigation committee never asked her about that. They never questioned it. But when you do something like, when you say something like that kind of calls into question your credibility as a witness. If you're willing to tamper, try to get the information you want, threaten somebody to destroy their life. And Charlotte Bennett, we all know most of her story. Excuse me. Charlotte Bennett, when we all heard that initially, we were kind of shocked. I mean, you have to feel for her. She was traumatized. She was sexually abused, sexually assaulted. And, that's not something that I've experienced. I don't pretend to know how she feels. I don't. And, this is a girl that, my daughter's age. So I can't, you start to feel for her a little. And, but then it turned out, as Connie told you when we were talking, that she had previously accused a fellow student at Hamilton College of sexual assault, and that he got kicked out of college and didn't graduate, and he actually had not sexually assaulted her. It was a made-up story. And that calls into question her credibility, but yet the investigation committee never followed that up further. Everybody knew that information by March, but nobody followed up on it. Oh, okay. So in conclusion, I had to come here today because to me this is like what was like living in the 1950s under Joe McCarthy, who was pointing at people and calling them communists. It seems to me this label of sexual harasser is doing a lot to destroy people's lives, can destroy somebody's life if you don't look into their side of the story and look at the whole picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Martha, are you going to lead us into the Q&A?
Yes.
Once again, Martha, for the 3rd time today. Wow.
First of all, I want to thank the people that are outside that don't fit in the room, who are watching on my computer outside. And I want to thank everyone in this room one more time, especially these panelists. Can we give them a round of applause? I want to mention that I specialize in domestic violence. I have a degree in psychology, and I am an advocate for victims. And so are the women on this panel. Let's not forget that. So when women like us come together and we say there's something wrong here, it's time for the public to listen. Another thing is that as an elected district leader, There's some state committee people in here. I want to thank you for being here, Democrats. And I want you to know that the Democratic Party, even though you might think that they stepped aside and left him standing alone, I bet you that they want him back, because I've been hearing the conversations and I've been talking to some of those leaders. And for whatever reason, we follow party protocol, but inside our heart, it's something else. And at the booth, it's something else. So when we vote, nobody has to know who you're voting for. That's your right. The voters have a right. And one thing that the voters are saying, they're using the word shame. Okay? They're saying shame on the Attorney General. I thought she was all right. Shame. So shame on anyone that thinks it's okay, including elected officials. Shame on anyone who thinks that they can advance themselves by putting somebody down and railroading and doing what they did. So now we're going to turn it over to Q&A.
No, Connie. Turn it to Connie.
Oh, Connie?
Yeah.
All right. So Connie's going to come back and say a few words, and then you're going to have a Q&A. Thank you.
Who has a question? Let me see your hand. Right there. Come right up. State your name at this microphone. And we'll find out which one of our panel members would be kind enough to answer your question. Who are you?
My name is Cheryl Fettick,
Cheryl.
and thank you, Martha, for inviting me to come. I know some of the people in the audience were all active in the community. I attended the state committee convention on Thursday when the Democratic candidates were nominated. And Letitia James was speaking as a candidate, so that she would get support of the Democratic Party. And she came down very hard on Andrew Cuomo during her speech. And in light of what you were explaining before, and why would she do this? Is she just a very bad lawyer? Did she hire bad lawyers? Is there some other ulterior motive here that is going on that we're not aware of? I have to tell you that I've been involved in politics a long time, and some of the men have not behaved properly. I do not support having pushed the governor out, because even if he didn't behave exactly properly, we need a strong governor, we need strong elected officials to represent us. And then my second question is, and I'm sorry if I'm saying too much, how should we change the sexual harassment rules and laws so that we are clear of some of the things that are not really sexual harassment?
Who would like to handle that?
The sexual laws are very clear. They're right here they're printed out. There is a difference between petty annoyance and actual sexual harassment. It is up there. Why Letitia James did this? She was starting for a run for governor. She did not get the backing, and she had to back down. It was a failed attempt. That was her objective in the beginning, to get him out and to get herself elected as, or at least running for governor of New York. It didn't work. She knows she's in trouble. She knows she's being brought up on prosecutorial misconduct, tampering, witness tampering, perjury, and everything else. Of course she's going to badmouth Governor Cuomo, because it makes him look worse and possibly rise her up to a better level. But we're smarter than that. Once this lawsuit is filed and things come out before a judge, you're going to see a different story. So she's going to continue to use him as a battering ram. Expect it. He expects it. He's a very smart man. He knows what he's up against. But keep in mind, he is not backing down. But the laws for sexual harassment and harassment are printed. They are there. They came off for the internet, so they're there for everybody to see. We have very clear laws with this. Why she didn't read, maybe she doesn't know the law. Well, if she does, then she just stepped out of line. She and Sheriff Apple stepped out of line. Okay? And there's nothing is going to change what she did, but she is going to have to answer for it. So she can mouth off all she wants at any Democratic convention and anywhere else.
Thank you, Michelle.
She's going to get nailed.
Thank you. Anybody else? Do I see any other hands? Well, I see one then. Come on up. You got it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Karen Leroy. Long life resident of Queens, Flushing, Queens. And, you know, I've campaigned for a few people who are now elected officials. And thank you, Martha, for inviting me. And my question is, this is very disturbing to me because I'm totally against sexual harassment. And I know that, you know, the world changes every 20 or 30 years. But my thing is what are we going to do about this? Because it seems to be getting out of proportion now. It's getting so bad where I don't have a son, but if I did, I'd be afraid for my son. That you can't be careful, don't kiss her, don't touch her, don't. This is not good. I have to say, I met Andrew Cuomo. One of his staff members invited me to one of his events, and I have a picture to prove it. I blasted it on social media. I mean, I went, you know, oh, Andrew Cuomo, you know. But I'm not saying that, you know, like, I'm not going to get into anyone's head, but I was really glowing, you know. I was like, oh. And, you know, he was very nice and very respectful to me, you know. And, you know, and we had a small conversation, and I can't even, you know, my thing is, and my question is what are we as a nation, as a country, as a state, what are we going to do to prevent innocent people from being railroaded?
Okay, who on the panel would like to?
Because it seems like the establishment is even, a few of them are against him, and I see even people that I've known and helped get elected on they're all like against this. And I feel like this is my thing, because I've even had a lawsuit once of someone with sexual harassment. And this is the thing.
All right, don't forget the 2-minute rule.
Okay, I feel that if you have enough gall to accuse someone of sexual harassment, then you should be woman enough to tell him up front, you're supposed to tell him, I don't like that, I'm not comfortable with that. And that's it. You don't just go and accuse someone of sexual harassment.
All right, what are we going to do about it? We're standing here right now and we're saying we're not going to tolerate this, and we will show up to events. We will tweet. We will let the world know that we're not tolerating this. You're not getting away with it. Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
My name is Debbie Rodriguez, and I am a New York registered voter. And my question is, since Governor Cuomo has been cleared by 5 DAs and the majority of New Yorkers still support him, how can we convince him to run again?
Good question. Love it.
Yeah.
How can we convince him to run again?
Who wants to answer that? Anybody here on Zoom or on the panel? How? Yeah, that's everybody has that question, don't we all? Absolutely.
Well, I might put a little input into it. I think people need to go on and volunteer to do if you want to help Team Como, because I think if he starts seeing people sending him emails and to volunteer to participate on Team Como, I think he's going to realize he has a lot of supporters backing him, and that's what he's waiting for, his supporters to come out.
You say, I know Monique was just up, and I would like to be, I wish we were all there together and we could all talk. But Monique, I want to assure you, our group has been reaching out to the Black community, the Hispanic community, to our LGBTQ communities. We're having trouble in some of the areas in the Black community. I know Kimberly is here with us. She reached out to the Baptist churches. She's reached out so far and wide. But again, Kimberly's in Michigan. You know, I'm in Buffalo. anybody that's in that area in Queens and the Bronx, if they know of any contacts and they can help us to reach out to that community, we would love to do that. We have postcards, direct mail pieces going right into the homes. It's really important that we speak to other New Yorkers, and that has been our mission, to just really communicate with everybody, make people aware what's happened here, and just engage in conversation is just really important. New Yorkers need to know. And I'll take the tell, and then we'll go back to questions, but we have these direct mail pieces that we're sending out to all the communities. If anybody knows of a contact or a community or a group or organization that you think would benefit from conversation with us, and we're talking just facts, okay? We don't get into our opinions. We're talking just facts, and there's a lot of facts here. Please just let us know. I ask that you share your email with us. We have out at the table, Michelle has brought papers that you can just fill out your email. We can reach out with you and work with you if you can work with us. I think that would be really super important. Okay, I'll turn it over back to Paul if nobody here else on Zoom has any more questions.
Thank you, Connie. All right, step up if you have a question. And again, use the microphone. Let us know who you are and ask
Thank you very
away.
much. So again, my name is Cheryl Fentic,
States Committee people.
and I'm a Democratic judicial delegate and member of the county committee in Queens. I've been very active since I was a child. Monique was talking. The first race meeting that I went to, racial relations meeting I went to when I was 12 years old, my black music teacher invited me as a Jewish girl to go and speak on the topic. But anyway, my question is, what should we do? What would you like us to do to go forward to rectify this situation? What would New Yorkers for Justice like the voters to do, like us to do? What plans did they have for what should be done to does Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo, support your efforts? Is he involved with it? Is he in communication with you? Thank you.
And Michelle is going to address your question.
No, Governor Cuomo is not in contact with us. We are a grassroots, just a movement. What can you do? You can start writing op-eds to the newspapers. You can put pressure on the AG's office. You can put pressure on, as far as Merrick Garland, to be sure that they know what Tish James has done. Write to your congressmen, write to your senators, put pressure on everyone and everywhere that you possibly can, and join New Yorkers for Justice. Keep us rolling. The more people we have, the more things we can do. That's what you can do for us. That's what you can do for Governor Cuomo. But at this time, put pressure on your politicians and put it in the paper. Write it and say it anywhere you can. Say it to your neighbors. Say it to your friends. Just keep on touting his innocence, touting and saying how much we need him back in Albany. The state is falling apart. We need Governor Cuomo back, and that's what you need to do.
My name is Carolyn. I live in Suffolk County, and I'm a good friend of Michelle's for many, many, many years. Oh. Michelle, this question is for you. What can we do? What can we say to Letitia? Where do we write to? I don't know. I don't have a lot of knowledge of political workings at all. What do we say to Letitia James?
Resign.
Get out of office?
Resign would be the first thing. That I would love to hear. You know what? I think, Martha, you are the district leader. You would be better off answering that.
You know, one of the things that I tell the voters is that when you're not happy with a candidate, don't vote for them. You can start with that. Your vote and the people's vote and the public vote is what put people in office, and it would take them out of office.
Okay, well, somebody had asked what we could do as far as New Yorkers for Justice. What can we do? Together, we can do quite a bit. So we have this multimedia campaign going right now. We talked about the direct mail that's going into the voters' homes. We also want to do this through Google and YouTube, okay, podcasts. We need to start to speak to the voters. That is the most important thing. His approval rating is going to rise right up when people start to really become aware of what's happened. Together, this is going to come from the people, folks. It always is. The power is with us. We know that. I mean, we can contact our local officials. But remember, those local elected officials, at least in my area, they were very quick to ask for his resignation. So are they going to come and join us now and say, okay, maybe they're not going to? That's my opinion. I believe we together must do this. So I ask, again, everybody to join New Yorkers for Justice. If we can come together and start to really broaden our multimedia campaign, and that's commercials. We can do commercials. We can do on TV commercials. We can absolutely do them through social media, YouTube, podcasts, Google. So that even these just 1 or 2 minute segments. And I think Daisy, I would love her to answer this question too, but I think that could be so powerful. It's about coming together. We can be a force to be reckoned with. It's the power is with the people. Go ahead, Daisy, if you can just say a few words to what we can do going forward.
Well, actually, I'm not sure if the AG's license has already lapsed, but a while back, everyone was trying to get her disbarred because her renewal was coming up, and a lot of people are trying to on Twitter write in and say how can she because all this information everyone on Twitter and Facebook has known for ever since the report came out, right? So we've known all this, and yet nothing progressed. The media failed to recognize it. It was just these grassroots movements. And so I think maybe she has renewed it. I'm not sure, but maybe she hasn't. I don't know. Maybe there's still a chance there.
We have 2 brief closing comments now. We'll hear first from Martha, and then to wrap it up for the day, we will go again to Connie. Is it Buffalo, Josh?
Yeah, Buffalo.
We'll go,
Right.
and Connie will have the last word. Martha,
To
you're on the air.
piggyback on the compassionate question, I'm collecting impressions, so I will give you my phone number, and I'm gathering a lot of public impressions about what's going on because I do represent the voice of the public. So you can send that to me, and I will make it public. I will take it wherever it needs to go. That's a new campaign. I want to recognize Soyla. Soyla, please stand up. This is one of our leaders elected. Okay. Cheryl, stand up. And a few of them already left the room. It's important that you have some elected Democrats in this room and recognize them because they represent constituencies and they vote for judges. So maybe they can ring the ear of some of the judges that they vote and nominate. Just to briefly close, I want to thank New Yorkers for Justice. I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank the Sheraton Community Affairs 109 Precinct because they're circling to make sure we don't have any cookies around that are going to try to interrupt us in what we're doing and in our mission. I want to thank a little firefighter. Ms. Moreno, can you come in here? Leon, okay? Fire survivor, okay? And we're all survivors. Leon is a survivor. And Ms. Moreno, say something in Spanish. It's okay. Say bilingual, because she's a real professional speaker.
I'm so happy to be here today. I'm really proud of Marta as a Latina woman. I met her for the first time when I have a tragedy in my house, when my house was on fire. I didn't know Marta. I always very active in my community, in political action. But Marta without knowing me, she just come to my house and offer me and my family the full support. And I'm campaigning for Cuomo, so I know personally him. And if he is becoming to accusing him for sexual harassment, I'm gonna accuse her because when she saw Cuomo, she just go and grabbing him and hugging him, and we have a picture with him. He was very polite, very respectful man, and I love him as a leader. And when you see all those politicians, they make an announcement running for any position. He's in one of them. When he said he's in your side, he's really is. And Martha too. So I'm so thankful for have Martha in my life to help my family during that special time. And Liam, he's my nephew. He's the only survivor from the fire. He was 10 months when that happened. So we have a long journey. He's have 95% of his body burned. And Martha, she take me to the hospital to see my sister when she was in Cornell. Yeah, she helped me out with my family from DR, also too with all the papers. And we always be in touch. When she told me about coming in today for that event, we as a family, we make all those efforts to be here. Even her, she's my godmother, my friend for a long time, my sister-in-law, my good friend Carlitos, Marisol, Vanessa, Cynthia, Neri Reyes, all the people, they're here with us. They're supporting Martha and support that commitment to help get back Cuomo and get all those things that we have right now that we faces in our community. So we need that leadership there to take care of all those things for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yep, and now Connie, we're going to turn it over to you to close out the discussion for the day. Once again, Connie, ladies and gentlemen.
So, wow, what a great day. I want to thank all the guest speakers. They were truly amazing. And everybody that came out today, we had a full house. I see standing room only. We had 34 here on Zoom from all across the country. So, and then we're in Queens, New York with, I don't know how many people, but there is a lot of people here today. And I really appreciate everybody stopping in, everybody with their really strong, passionate statements. I appreciate every one of you and thank you. And it was so nice and a pleasure to meet everybody. I want to just close by saying just a few things about New Yorkers for Justice. We would love to have you join us. We meet regularly every week. We send out Zoom links. So if you would please consider giving your email to signing up for our newsletter to Michelle or to Brenda or Martha or Carol, any one of them can take your email and we would make sure that our membership team gets that email and invite you to our upcoming meetings. So I just think it's going to take a village, folks, to get the word out of what's happened here. Honestly, I just think the power here is going to be with the people. I don't think we can ever really count on our leaders that have called for Governor Cuomo to resign. I don't see him backing up or saying, wait, maybe I misspoke, or maybe I jumped the gun or was maybe impulsive. I think we're just going to have to do this ourselves. So what I want to ask everybody is to take away from today all of this information that we shared, to tell others, tell your neighbors, your friends, your family, your coworkers. That is going to be the best way to get the word out of what's happened. Just share that information, invite them to join us, invite them to take a look at our website, newyorkersforjustice.com. A whole host of information is there for everybody as well. So again, thank you so much. I'm going to leave and end on this note. Michael Tracy has been, I believe he's a columnist, but I know he's on Twitter. I pulled up this because he's been pretty vocal about what's happened here to Governor Cuomo. So the last statement that I saw on Twitter, I wrote it down and I wanted to share it with you to close today. Michael Tracy, he states, every single one of the charges against Governor Cuomo that was alleged to constitute criminal wrongdoing has now completely fallen apart. But the perpetrators of this farce, nevertheless, has succeeded in their goal of upending New York State's government. This is a horrible precedent. Again, that's Michael Tracy. Okay, so we're going to wrap up. We thank you so much. Think about everything. It's pretty alarming and disturbing what we're learning. I have to admit, we need to ask a lot of questions, and those that may have, misspoke or jumped the gun here, we really need to hold them accountable, and we have to start talking with them and asking questions of why, what has happened here. We need answers. Okay, good day, everybody. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you again for coming. Bye now.